Now, at this time, ladies and gentlemen, may we have a motion to convene the public hearing?
So moved.
So moved by
Second.
Mr. Ferramasca, seconded by Mr. Sheridan. On roll call, Mr. Ferramasca,
Yes.
Mr. Schleifer,
Aye.
Ms. Zarate,
Aye.
Mr. Pola,
Aye.
and Mr. Sheridan.
Aye.
Is there anyone in chambers wishing to be heard concerning ordinance number 10-2010?
I'd like to make a comment on that. First of all, the ordinance that we're referring to is units going right next to the building that they're building right across the street, that office building. When this ordinance, first of all, I'd like to clarify something. In December of '08, in the conference agenda at the very last meeting of that year, this ordinance, this request was brought up and denied. The developer then came, into public session with he and his attorney, filibustered long enough that ultimately it was approved. At the very first meeting of '09, this ordinance was again turned over and said, they really wasn't looking to shoehorn 42 units right alongside of that office building right by the ball field. Well, here again, we had another issue of spot zoning. However, it was then said, instead of the 42 units, now what we're doing is we're coming up with 24 units as a compromise to the developer. And here's my concern. From the curbing to the power lines, and there's huge power lines that run straight across that whole area, it's approximately 100 feet. And from the back of these units, which, by the way, from the back of the unit to the power line, it's 28 feet, which means there's no backyard. Who's ever going to be back there, whether it's kids that may be there or not, I don't know. I can't predict that. They're going to be right under these huge power lines. Number two, these 42 units were approximately 260 feet long, running alongside of the curbing, alongside of that office building. The new proposed units are going to be 200 feet long and only 24 units. So, I personally really have a problem with shoehorning, and we even had a report that was told to us from an outside group that this here was not a good idea to shoehorn these units into that little space, right? But it's obvious that in this evening's ordinance, it may very well be introduced. Yes, we do have residential and non-residential, but the residential is way up on the hill by E.H. Horton and not right next to this huge office building where they're going to go ahead and stick in a 200-foot building to provide for 24 units. So, given that, I'm not for it.
I have some questions. Blake, does the RM2 zone extend from currently where they're building the condominiums on Route 10, which is the Horton property, all the way basically to this office building multi-zone? Is that all one RM2 zone?
Yes.
So any change to the RM2 zone would also apply to all of Horton's property plus all the houses along Route 10?
If Horton chose to abandon his current project and to come in with a mixed-use development, theoretically it would. However, the zone caps the non-residential maximum at 15,000 square feet, which has already been developed. So D.R. Horton could not build a mixed-use development without seeking a variance. So I don't believe it would be able to apply to D.R. Horton's site unless you tried to go for a variance.
There's a number of houses right along Route 10 that do not belong to D.R. Horton.
That's correct.
I don't know what their total acreage is, but if it were 5 acres, they could also, that RM2 zone would also apply to them, and they would be able to legally build multifamily plus office buildings?
No, they would not. The multifamily, three sets of standards. One set of standards for a pure multifamily project, which is what D.R. Horton obtained approval for and has been constructing. One for pure non-residential development, which is what was built in the office building. And what this ordinance would do is add a third set of standards for mixed-use development, which the office site is proposing to become. The properties that I think you're referring to on Route 10, first of all, again, could not become a mixed-use project because the zone's already been maxed out under the current regulations for non-residential development. They could not do multifamily development unless they were to be merged with the D.R. Horton site, because you need 50 acres for a pure multifamily project, which they don't have. All they can do, unless they were to merge with D.R. Horton, and even that's capped at the number of units it's at, is single-family development.
Now, the current multifamily only RM2 specifications is how many units per acre?
It's 2.45 units per acre, but it's not just the acre of the lot in the RM2 zone. It includes the acres in the PU zone that are reserved for open space purposes.
And the mixed-use zone, what would be the density of the residential?
5 acres, but it's limited to the lot in question and doesn't include the acres in the adjacent PU zone that's being used for open space.
So on this particular piece of property, what would the density be?
It would be the density would be slightly less than 5 units to the acre.
5 units per acre. Yeah. And so what you're saying is that this particular piece of property is unique. It has unique requirements to it.
That's correct.